Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, the 60th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. I'm Jacob, and on this episode, I'm joined by
Dan.
Duncan.
Jack.
And John.
And we're glad to have you with us for this show, listeners. We are fortunate that we hope we will be able to get the opportunity to go over the new Exemplary Battles book, shall we call it? I forget the exact name of the tome, but we've got Legio Hereticus, we've got Traitor Fulgrim, or Transcendent Fulgrim to be able to talk about, as well as some other things here and there, and we've got a great show lined up for you. A great show brought to you by sponsors like Elric's Hobbies, where you can use code HeresyABB at checkout for a discount, as well as Monument Hobbies, where you can use our affiliate link in the comments or show notes, as well as the code HeresyABB for a discount on your order. Additionally, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Check us out over on Patreon to get exclusive benefits like exclusive chat with the show hosts, as well as, in some cases, early previews of forthcoming merch and some exclusive access to merch. We'll hope to see you there. All right, guys, with the sponsor spot out of the way, what's everybody been up to for hobby?
Yeah, so this is John. I had a little bit of a family issue this week. My wife decided that since it was Texas and raining, that she would be a good Samaritan, help a guy that had spun out and hit a wall. So she got out and helped him. And by the time that she had approached his vehicle and asked him to put it in neutral, someone slammed into her car, and it went barely missed her. And then she had a sorority sister in back, so they're still fighting all that stuff. But because of that, I got some of my stuff got a little bit delayed this week. Before that had happened, I managed to get my 3D printer hooked up and started some prints off. And I've printed a couple of Warlord heads, one for a night base that I'm working on, and one for the highway table that I'm working on as well. And then militia-wise, I went ahead and picked up a fourth set of militia field guns, so now I can field 2 units of 4 instead of one big unit of 6. And got all those built up all the way into the point where I'm about to glue on glass cannons, and I'm going to leave those separate so I can paint them as sub-assemblies to make it a little bit easier on myself. A couple of years ago, I did a Kickstarter for a magnetically sealed dice tray / rolling area, and I got a Cobra logo burned into it so that I can use it as my setup for all my display and everything. And this week I went out and found some spray paint that kind of matches my Cobra colors and spray painted that up, so I've got that ready to go. I've got it charging right now so that I can make sure and get everything correctly set up before I seal it all up and start loading it with dice to start taking to the next few events here in Dallas. And then other things I've been doing is kind of just fighting the 3D printer. Any print that looks fairly big seems to have some issues kind of sticking to the bed because it's a glass bed. Even though it's heated, it's got some issues. So I'm kind of working on that. And that's pretty much all I've gotten done in the last couple weeks.
John, are you using anything to help Hirschen with the glass bed, or are you just going in raw?
Right now I'm going in raw. Someone had said that I might want to look into doing glue stick on the bed before running the printer.
Glue stick, or you can't get a good hairspray. It has to be cheap.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have glue stick at my disposal, so I'm going to have to go to the store tomorrow when my truck's back. My wife's out running around doing stuff with her friends tonight, so no errands for me. But
with my Ender 3 to get good prints on it, it was Aquanet, and it always worked like a dream.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be honest. I was really surprised with the quality of the prints I'm getting off an Ender 3 Neo for being an FDM printer. The Warlord heads that I printed are really nice. There's a giant undercut in this thing where there's a dead Space Marine kind of closing up a hole. You can kind of see under the Warlord head. And it had no problem with that at all. I was really shocked. So for an FDM, it took a little cleanup, but these two heads look amazing. I think once I prime them, you won't even know that they're printed.
Nice.
With the I've not had to use any glue sticks or hairspray with the heated glass bed on my Ender. Now I will say that any drafts whatsoever cause horrible adhesion issues. So one of the things I've found, I have a really crappy cover because I have a couple cardboard boxes taped together covering it. But any air drafts whatsoever cause inconsistent cooling and cause it to start lifting off the bed, I've found. And so that's one of the ways I've gotten around that, is using a cheap cover around it, or a cover of some sort, to prevent the air drafts.
Yeah, I've got mine set up in my garage, and so it's not that drafty. And I've also got it on its own shelf, kind of set near the doors to keep down on any of that type of stuff. And it also doesn't, I made sure the shelf was level, and so it doesn't move a lot either when it's going back and forth. So I don't know if necessarily if it's drafts or what, but it seems to every time be that same side of the print head or the print bed. So it might just be it's not getting hot right there, or the heating element's different on that side or something. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I'll try out the glue stick, and if that doesn't work, I'll start doing more investigations. I do definitely scrape it down real well every time between prints, though, to make sure there's no goo or there's no excess stringies or anything left over.
It could just be a slight difference in leveling too.
Yeah, I go through every time and do a bed level, and I did the paper thing. I've done that a couple times since I've started, so I'm trying to just work through everything as it comes up. I will toss it on to Dan.
I did not do much this week other than organizing until today. So I figured out what I have to build, how I'm building it for my Blood Angels, the last details, and then organize things into the right boxes and totes so I have access to them all. And then today I've got 4 more Angels tiers with assault cannons that I have left to build. So I'm trimming and building those. Right now I had to go in and pull out some old Mark III arms because I had ended up with only 5 of the grenade launcher dudes, so I had to come up with arms to hold the assault cannons. But I should have them built tonight, and then I think I'm going to move on to assault marines from there, and be continuing on building. Yeah, so that's all I had going on. I did pick up the new battle box. I'm splitting with my buddy in Michigan, so I've got a Dorito that'll go in my Ultramarines. And then the dudes, half the dudes, will go somewhere. I haven't figured out yet. So that's all I got. So Jack, what you got going on?
See here, not a lot on putting paint on models. Been working a lot on getting everything ready for the Adepticon display board with Duncan. Working on a big piece of terrain for that right now, getting that printed out. And then a lot of getting stuff cleared out for press and stuff like that. Outside of that, it's been a fairly quiet week. So see here, who hasn't gone yet? Duncan, have you gone yet?
No, I have not.
Hey, Duncan, tag, you're it.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see here. Since last weekend, I have done absolutely no hobby because I've been stuck in Louisville, which is where I am today. Stuck in a hotel in Louisville for Academy. So I'm sitting here enjoying my Sunday night, sitting at this really uncomfortable table, sitting in an uncomfortable chair, and building another Contemptor because I actually brought my hobby stuff with me this time since I have a room to myself. So my entire plan for this week is to spend the entire week not painting and not priming because I didn't bring my paint with me, but it's to build every single thing that I need to get my Blood Angels up to a grand total of 4K for BDH, in case anyone doesn't know what that means. That is Big Johnson Heresy, without the word Johnson for the D. But we're looking at doing 4K for that, so I'm building these guys and I'm going to get these guys all done for that. And then hopefully next weekend, when I get home, I can primer most of them enough to where I can bring them down here next week and actually sit here and do some actual painting on these guys and have them at least somewhat ready to go and not waste the next 3 weeks. Because right now I feel like it's already a waste. But that's all I've got. So tag Jake. Got anything?
I do have some things. Since the last time we posted a show, or I was on a show, it's a little hard to know heads from tails. I've had to reinstall Windows on my PC, encountered some pretty gnarly errors. don't know if I ever nailed down the cause, but it doesn't appear to have been hardware related, so we are up and moving. Episodes are being posted. Huge shout to Jack for picking up, I think, an episode or two for me in that lurch. From there, non-heresy related hobby, I did have my very first ever hobby night with my buddy Alex. He's never painted his own model from scratch, and I kind of put him through a cooking show. He had a couple models that I also had, and mine didn't have any primer on them, and neither did his. So I kind of pre-primed some models, let him come over, taught him how to prime models. We're going very easy, very basic technique on a lot of this stuff. Dare I say, like the slap chop kind of thing. We're going an undercoat, we're throwing a zenithal over the top of it, we're working with a lot of speed paints and contrasts, but by the end of our 2-hour painting session, including time spent kind of teaching him what was what, time spent ducking out to prime, and of course time spent on drinking beer, within 2 hours he had his very first model done to I'll call it Tabletop Plus, so it wasn't just 3 colors. I think he had about 5 on there. May have even, dare I say, been 6. And he had basic material down, and that's super exciting. I'm extremely proud of him for finally kind of taking that jump after having his Heresy painted for him his whole life up to this point. Past that, lot of assembling little like odd or strange skirmish games here or there. Carnival, game by Tabletop Combat, Monster Fight Club's Cyberpunk Combat Zone. Picked up the Arasaka Gang and ended up having a pretty badly miscast model that they replaced with a full V2 sculpt. So it seems a number of people have complained about the same sculpt I complained about, to the point where they've just wholly replaced it. Huge shout to them. The customer service interaction was a little strange, but not anything horrific or untoward. Just, they didn't tell me it was a V2 sculpt that was coming. They just said they couldn't replace the original sculpt. So overall, relative to that, what I would consider a under-promise moment, they definitely over-delivered. So big shout to them there. I also, and I don't know if I said this out loud on the show here before, and it ended up cut, but it's been about a month ago, I went with a buddy over to Iron Wind Metals. They produce the white pewter metal models that Battletech and apparently, or surprisingly to me, a number of other games have used. But that was just really cool to be able to get to see that casting process firsthand. And I can't immediately point to another place on Earth that I would better refer to as a kit basher's paradise. They were gracious enough that, because they just kind of cast things as they're needed or as they're available, they had a lot of odd sprues kind of floating around with, here's a couple guns, here's a couple arms, here's a couple legs. So if you ever wanted to kit bash your own mech from scratch, or otherwise you're like, well, you know, the kit is for the prime or the standard configuration, what if I want to swap a couple guns on it and make it another canonically available or canonically produced model, you definitely would have the opportunity to do something like that. It was a bit of a hike to get in, and there was a little bit of protocol as far as, like, to my knowledge, scheduling that appointment, letting them know we were coming by, and a lot of our own legwork to do it, just because we had to find out what bits we thought we wanted kind of ahead of time, and even if they weren't all available, just the work of sort of combing through this warehouse that they have, looking for what sprues go to what mechs. They're all labeled, but a lot of spreadsheeting ahead of time to make that a reality. But yeah, so that's kind of what the. Go ahead, Jack.
When I went there in 2019, I just went in completely blind, and it was probably some of the most fun I've ever had, spelunking in a catacomb for this random stuff that I never even knew I wanted. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I went with a buddy who he's one of their sculptors, and he does some official painting for camo specs. So he kind of warned me of what to get into as far as having a spreadsheet, having an idea of what mechs I wanted. But just super cool place. Very much felt like Kid and Candy Store, or like I'd won the last golden ticket. Just to see this place just completely bristling with models. Probably not as quite the full Disneyland experience as what you would get out of going to someplace like Warhammer World. But at least for my immediate availability or access, it was about as close as I could get.
It was my Disney World. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm here with you there. I'm just trying not to oversell it. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool, man. Very cool. I'm glad you made it there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So,
Yeah,
go ahead, John?
Yeah, I'm close to Reaper, and so when they used to be out of a little warehouse in Louisville, Texas, and I went and did a tour when I was about, I want to say 12 or 13, and they took me through all the spin process and everything, and now they're moved on up and they do regular warehouse tours whenever they do their events. So it's definitely interesting to see that side of the hobby and how that works and everything, especially when they sell bits by the gram and things like that.
Yeah, Iron Wind had something very similar where you pay by the pound at checkout, and that was a dangerous revelation to me. I didn't know what they were going to charge me for the pound on the way out, so I just kind of spent a couple hours putting together what I thought was what I was after, and then I got rung up at checkout, and I had come in, thankfully, just under budget, but it was way more models than what I expected to leave with for the budget I had set for myself. So cool. Does that conclude our hobby? Has everybody had the opportunity to go?
Well, there was one thing that I actually forgot to mention.
Yes, sir.
I actually got a chance to get a teaching game in with my buddy Corin, who I think I've mentioned before, and I know you've met. I actually got a chance because he's played a couple games of 30K in previous edition. He's played one game in current edition before today, or before yesterday. And when he played that one game, he was not feeling all the well, and so it did not go well for him. And he kind of got his poop pushed in. But we finally got a chance to get his the Alpha Legion on the table for him to play, and actually play the list that you and I, Jacob, have come up with, and that Jack has come up with as well for Corin. And he enjoyed it. He had questions. He spent a lot of time asking questions and learning the intricacies that go along with 30K, and then complaining about certain things that all of us mostly complain about: bad rules interactions, things like that. But he enjoyed it. He definitely was enjoying it. He definitely had fun playing, and he wants to play more and get more involved in the Heresy. So that was overall a net positive. And that happened with the Kentucky 30K group we have here in Kentucky. And that was hosted by Keith and the Battle Forge here in Lexington. So shout out to those guys for hosting it. And that was that.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I had the fortune to meet him in person, but Keith is certainly very, very active in his hobby, and he seems like a very good dude.
He is. He's cool, dude.
Excellent. So, with hobby progress sort of behind us there, let's go ahead and get into our pre-releases for the coming week. If I'm right, or releases, I guess at this rate, I think the only thing that we've ended up dropped into the release window is the on-again, off-again Trader Champion, who might finally be showing up. We did just, I think, miss the window on talking about the Astartes Battle Force, 30 Mark IIIs, set of 5 special weapons. Really wishing that was 10, but I get it. Derideo and a Land Raider, if I'm correct. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
what did they end up clocking in at that for U.S. dollary dues?
230.
230. So we know that 20-ish Marines are, if I'm right, those are about 80. So we've got $120 tied up in the Astartes components. I think we said, and I don't know if we've got the breakout price on it, we expected the Deredeo to clock in right around 70. And the Land
80.
Raider, the Deredeo was all the way up at 80. Wow, I really didn't think it had quite as much material to it as the Leviathan kit, but I suppose those weapons might be a little more pronounced than what I'm giving them credit for. And then the Land Raider, is that still at about 80, or did that creep up a little bit past that?
Land Raider's 90.
Okay. So ultimately, you're looking at about $300 worth of product in that box, give or take your value assessment on certain things. So unfortunately, it is a limited box, but it does sound like quite a few of those did make it to major hobby shops. And that's pretty exciting to see get out there. Cult of Paint has been very, very positive on the Mark III kit. In spite of some general derision I've heard from a number of people. Just something to keep in mind, not trying to talk down at the kit or say that it's not worth it. If you were interested in Mark III and wanted something that was going to stand up or scale up a little bit more relevant to our current crop of plastics, or didn't want to look at resin support weapons, including heavy support weapons, I think the new Mark III kit is going to treat you extremely well. In the same way that I think the Mark VI kit has treated a lot of people well. So, anything else that I'm missing here?
The End of the Death came out last week as well, and that should be releasing, officially shipping next week. And we'll also get the audiobook on the same day.
Right on, right on. So that's and did that blow out into a third part, or is this it?
There's a third.
There is a third.
Yep,
okay.
There will be a third.
Okay, so we're through part 2. And if I had to bet then, because it's been, 8 to 12 months since part 1, does that sound about right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Okay. So I would bet, hopefully before the end of next year. I almost got a little optimistic and I said first half of next year, but no, I think saying by the end of next year is going to be pretty appropriate. That puts End in the Death stepping at about the anniversary of Heresy 2.0, so that's pretty all right.
This is going to sound crazy, but the End of the Death, Volume 3, Horus Heresy, Siege of Terra, currently free delivery Tuesday, January the 30th of 2024.
Wow, that would be
That's
very
per
surprising
Amazon,
to
so
me if that's
that's
accurate.
per Amazon.
Yeah.
So
They do a lot of placeholders, though.
they do, but they even have an example of the art on it, which very clearly shows Horus fighting the Emperor, and the size comparison between the two really kind of lends a little bit of a nostalgic kick for me, because it kind of shows the Emperor at the base of the stairs, like the old model from the diorama that we all probably remember seeing multiple times.
I like this. I forget his name. I think it's Jason Roberts' artwork for most things. The new Emperor versus Horus is a little odd because of the way he framed it. I think you're looking over the Emperor's shoulder, kind of. I definitely won't. I missed the chance to buy the old Wayne England print when Warhammer Art had that. That's probably my favorite piece of mid-tier GW art, or mid-era GW art. I feel bad about missing that one, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this next book comes out. I know we've all kind of said that the storyline is kind of not everyone's cup of tea, I guess is probably the nicest way to say it. It's interesting in parts, and in certain ways is a little oddball, but I definitely think that it'll be interesting going forward.
Yeah, I for one, who has been reading the Heresy novels since the day the first one came out.
Yep.
I'm just looking forward to the end of the journey in many ways, and seeing what comes next from GW.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what stories they choose to tell in the wake of the Emperor and Horus's passing. I'm sure a couple of those chapters will be, dare I say, epilogue pieces, where we'll get to see some lore that we, to my knowledge, haven't really seen or experienced much of, which would be what happens to get the Emperor put on the Golden Throne? How does the Imperium realize they have to feed him 1,000 souls a day? Just
Yep.
kind of putting all that together.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go death blow and then the book ends. I think we're going to get some follow up and some stuff. And I kind of hope we get some scouring and things like that, and some other stuff going forward. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with some of this ending stuff, because that has always been the most hotly debated, how they're going to do it and things like that. So
yeah, obviously I want scouring stuff, but I also want the ending to feel as epic as the original beginning felt, as good as the story honestly has earned at this point.
Yep.
That's really my big hope.
I was there the day Horus slew the Emperor.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm hoping for, is some kind of payoff for that. And I want Gargiulo to die.
I want a lot of people to die in the book series, Federal Agents.
Yes. I want a lot of characters to die, honestly.
I forget, have they killed Grammaticus yet?
No.
Multiple times.
I was going to say, the problem is they have. The problem is he just won't stay dead. He's like a bad penny.
Well, he's only got one death left, so I'm kind of hoping that comes.
Did they get rid of him yet?
No, they haven't got rid of his character yet.
All right, from there, I think it's time to sink our teeth into the exemplary battle book that we got. So it's important, before we get too far into this, to put a couple caveats down, which are that this right now is the only way to get the Legion's Hereticus rules, the rules for Fulgrim Transfigured, the rights of war associated with that whole little cluster, and the Salamanders new unit for the book. This is at least a little concerning to some of us here on the show, just to put it out there as a disclaimer or something. Right now, these rules appear to be a single print run, and then they're gone. We don't know if that means they're going to be available online, in the case of the Salamanders unit, where it will live with all the other exemplary battles, or if this is something else. Tentatively, I'm speculating that we're not going to get plastic solar ox. I know that those molds are technically going to exist for Legions Imperialis, but with how long that game is taking to fully get off the ground, I'm really betting we're going to get a standalone Legions Hereticus trader book to expand trader options for late Heresy trader armies. That's my current bet. Given that we have the Legions Imperialis book, or whatever it is, that is Custodians and Sisters of Silence and Solar Ox, as well as the Assassins, that's my bet here.
I'm betting on 3 other books. I'm betting on 3 other books just like this.
Interesting.
Yep. I'm betting we're going to have a Hereticus book for that will feature the Plague Marines. Well, sorry, not Plague Marines, but the Death Guard. I'm betting we're going to have one that focuses pretty heavily on the World Eaters. And I'm kind of willing to bet that we're going to get one that's a catch-all for people who are like, that will probably include things like the Luperci, and maybe a little bit of the stuff for the Thousand Suns. But the thing about the Suns is, even in late Heresy, they weren't all demonic nonsensical. So,
Yep. That was my first thought here, is that we really won't have that. Now, that being said, if they want to push into scouring lore, we might
if they push into scouring lore, that'd be awesome.
Right, so that's where, if you're betting we're going scouring lore, I'm betting Hereticus is going to be a single standalone book to cover the broad swath of traitor legions from the Solar War all the way up until 40k. And so,
I can actually see that, because
you will get
Age of Darkness. It's not pure Horus Heresy.
Bingo. So you probably will see Rubric Marines. You probably will see full-on Plague Marines. And
yeah, you're probably right. We probably will.
But That's neither here nor there. The long and the short of that announcement was more to get it out of the way that if we bring up concerns about the fact that this is a seemingly one-off publication, we hope that these rules can be available to the people who would like to play them, and ideally sooner rather than later, rather than locking them into a book that goes out of print. Nobody wins there. All right, so I think with that note, we will go ahead and kick things off with the big boy himself. If I recall, he has gone up for order or pre-order around 400 Australian dollar dues, and I recall that being approximately 250 Bald Eagle machine gun dollars.
Bald Eagle machine gun dollars.
I'm not sure if that's accurate. That exchange rate may escape me from time to time. But when your country's other major metrics of unit are football fields per moon landing, sometimes some things get lost in the wash. So let's go ahead.
We measure asteroids in PW beetles, and we measure crocodiles in large crocodiles. So
yep,
just let that be known.
Yeah. Height and depth also tends to be statues of liberty.
Yep.
So if you want to get mad at us, go ahead and make sure you get mad at the French at the same time. That's all we're asking here. That's all we're asking. She's their fault.
It is 270 though. Is the actual price?
Okay, 270.
Right. Liberty dollar.
That is
it
far. Go ahead.
It is a beefy model, though. I will say that. Someone did a scale preview of every other Primarch, including the plastics, and the wingspan is the same as Magnus, Plastic Magnus, and it's actually taller than Plastic Magnus when you add the height of the wings. Fulgrim is almost seeing eye to eye with Plastic Magnus, so it's a beefy snake thing, critter man, woman, creature.
I saw it side by side with Engron. And they look proportionate and honestly good together.
Very exciting. I think the last time I saw Forge World really push themselves with a model like this probably would have been the laughing stock that they encountered with the Smog model for the Hobbit releases. Truly a remarkable model. I just remember seeing the price tag on it, and just about everyone else seeing the price tag on it, and saying, oh, surely you can't be serious. So, definitely cool to see Forge World continue to bring out their A-team for the character series. Fulgrim Transfigured is 600 points. He's Move 9, Weapons 8, Ballistics 6, Strength, Tough, and Wounds 7, I-8, 7 attacks, Lead 10, and a 2-up save. He has Blades of the Phoenician, Resplendent Wings. He is a Serpentine Demon form. His unit type is Demon Primarch. His special rules are Legion's Hereticus, Emperor's Children, Master of the Legion, Scion of Corruption, Move Through Cover. He's Traitor Loyalty, and his Warlord trait is Avatar of Perfection. When he is chosen as the army's warlord, he automatically has this trait during the controlling player's charge subphase. Fulgrim Transfigured in any unit he is part of must attempt a charge if there are any enemy units that contain models within at least 12 inches, and if they have a characteristic of 6 or more. So, even if
weapon skill.
Does it say weapon skill? Am I missing that? Yes, okay, unmodified weapon skill. So if the other guy has champions or praetors or their own Primarch, Fulgrim's got to hunt them down to assert that he's the most important.
Yep, he wants to show off his dominance.
Yep. Note that this does allow a unit to charge someone different. So if you've got a unit that's got some reasonable shooting prowess, you can shoot something different and then use Fulgrim's Warlord trait to cheat you into a combat that you shouldn't normally be able to get into. It also says, in the subsequent fight subphase, the controlling player must issue a challenge and must nominate Fulgrim to be the challenger. If the challenge is accepted by an enemy model with a weapon skill of 6 or more that does not have the Primarch or Demon Primarch unit type, while that challenge is ongoing, attacks made for Fulgrim hit on 2+ regardless of the weapon skill of the target. Cool. What a surprise. Fulgrim's absolutely going to punk the enemy Praetor or Custodian. But oddly enough, I don't think Constantine Valdor, didn't he get the Primarch unit type? Or is he just in the Lord? He's in the Primarch unit slot, I know. In addition,
I don't think he got the Primarch unit type.
Okay, in addition, the first reaction made in each game turn by Fulgrim Transfigured, and any unit he has joined does not use up a point of your reaction allotment. Hooray. It is important to highlight Demon Primarch, to my knowledge, does give Fear 2, but the cost to Demon Primarch is that if you would fail a leadership test, you take D3 wounds. So you kind of get that demonic influence that you see on Wordbearer's corrupted units rather than the true fearless Primarchs get. It's a little weird, and I'm generally speaking unhappy that they chose that option, but who knows? Maybe somebody thought that was the only way to balance this. The Serpentine Demon form has a 2-up armor and 4-up invulnerable save. And while he has 4 or fewer wounds, he gets +1 to his It Will Not Die. Neat. At the start of any other player turns, Fulgrim Transfigured, if Fulgrim is down to 2 or fewer wounds and not locked in combat, the controlling player may choose to remove Fulgrim as a casualty. If he is removed in this way, the opposing player achieves no objectives or secondary objectives that would be scored by removing him as a casualty. So if he gets down to 2 wounds and you somehow get him to not be in combat, which is arguably possible, yes, he does have to challenge, yes, he's going to be gutting that one model in a challenge at a time, but you can definitely massacre that model to the point where, as long as the other guy doesn't have a Herald or doesn't have Fearless, really kind of the same thing there, or the enemy Primarch, you can definitely force things to the point where you've won combat and you let Fulgrim face tank some wounds until he's down to under 2 wounds, and you go, cool, he's out, rest of the army's playing forward, thank you. His melee profile was actually previewed, I believe, in the Warcom article. So he is Strength User, AP 2, with Murderous Strike 4+, or he can choose to be Strength +3, dialing him up to the mighty Strength 10, AP 1, Brutal 2, Wrathful Blows 3, and Unwieldy. So you do give up your initiative to swing down an Initiative 1, but your reward for doing so is a Kick 2, Strength 10, with Brutal 2. You only get to make 3 attacks while doing that. If you need to chop into a Land Raider or a Spartan, this option is available to you. Otherwise, in most cases, you are more likely to be better served by his standard attack profile rather than Sundering Blows. I can't immediately think of a non-vehicle target that Sundering Blows is better against. Scion of Corruption. All Emperor's children in an army that include Fulgrim become Legions Hereticus rather than Legions Astartes, and that changes some things that we'll talk to in a bit. He's also got Resplendent Wings, where he can set his movement characteristic to 14. So if you wanted to put this guy with the jump pack equipped Palatine Blades from the Legacies PDF, he's actually going to be able to keep up with them and provide them a pretty durable bulwark, as long as it's not going to be like a las cannon team coming to tear him up. And that's pretty effective in and of itself. Any notes on Fulgrim before we proceed to talk about the Legions Hereticus for Emperor's Children?
He's a beast.
He's
as fits for Primarchs.
he's
He's beady.
yeah, he's a beater, but he's strangely, I think, less durable in close combat than normal Fulgrim would be, because normal Fulgrim gets up to a 3-up invulnerable save.
Yeah.
He does kill things better, and he can keep up with the jump pack unit, and all of those are worth some things. But like it feels like unless you put a high value on Legion's Hereticus and what that can transform for your Emperor's Children army, including some of the Rites of War and things that come along for the ride with that, I don't know. I guess a lot of that's also me personally, where I do typically put a very high value on the force multiplier aspects of Primarchs. That's part of why I don't particularly care for Magnus, is because he is neither a good enough gun platform, nor is he particularly talented in close combat, and nor does he bring a lot to help his boys out and help them win the day, which is unfortunate, but neither here nor there.
Similar feelings. He's a beat stick 1-on-1, but if someone can get like a command squad with a Praetor in there with him, Fulgrim challenges, you feed him command squad member Bob, who's got Chosen Warrior. He's going to kill Bob while your Praetor goes to town on his escort.
Yeah. Chosen Warriors really do muck Fulgrim, and it's unfortunate to see that all of that destructive power can just be blunted by, here, you're going to kill this guy, you're going to kill this guy, you're going to kill this guy. Nope, the guy with the flag is going to die last.
Yeah.
Just because as long as there's... Yeah. The fact that you are watching your buddy get dismembered by a demon Primarch doesn't seem to bother you as long as you have a flag.
And well, here's the next thing. This is honestly my concern. Say you have him and you have a group of Palatine Blades, and you bump into random. Say you just bump into Raldoron, and Raldoron's got a command squad with him, and he feeds you Bob, the command squad member, and then they go to town butchering your Palatine Blades because they're going to. Now you have the demon fearless rule. You don't have regular fearless. That's, unless I'm wrong, doesn't that mean that if Fulgrim and company then lose that combat, that Fulgrim's going to have to take some free wounds?
Fulgrim isn't going to have to take the wounds. The squad takes the wounds and you assign them. But it's still the case where you're going to lose an additional D3 models. I think it's D3 wounds for the fact that you are Emperor's Children, and if you don't have the tools to hit a Terminator squad in close combat, they for sure have the tools to hit you. Yes, I do understand your weapon skill 5. Yes, that's very impressive. Yes, good for you, Gold Star. But they have an invulnerable save, and you don't. And as soon as they come through with their own Thunderhammers or Blades of Perdition, it's going to be a real bad time.
Yeah, that's really my concern there. Is I don't think, honestly, that most Primarchs, when you see them running around, they're running around with a group of Chosen Warriors of one kind or another. So unless you can justify Fulgrim eating a command squad guy while the other guy's Praetor or Primarch goes to town on Fulgrim's squad, I don't see Fulgrim coming out the winner on this.
No, I pointed out where Fulgrim now is just a very, very, very expensive Sigismund. Yes, he will gut a model every turn, but unless you can successfully get him into close combat with, like, a Dreadnought, and even then, he's going to have to kill 3 Dreadnoughts to pay for himself. Or take it the other direction, he's going to have to punk a Dreadnought and a Spartan and do something else in the process in order for you to have justified dropping 600 points on him and killing, even if you force feed him a 70 point character a turn, you're gonna have to do that. He's gonna have to get force fed 10 of those, I'm sorry, 9 of those characters over the course of, I guess, being just locked in combat for the last 5 player turns of the game, in order for him to make his points back, and that's assuming you're feeding him like 70-point custodians or something. Yeah, it's rough. I suppose it does open the opportunity that if you put him with vets or command squad, something that can bring some pretty big shiny guns, and you shoot one unit and then charge another unit because you're obligated to, that can make it easier to justify his points expense. But I still don't know if it goes all the way to successfully doing so.
Yeah, nor do I. Like I said, I love the model. The model's gorgeous. I don't know if I would actually be able to justify putting him on the table and expect him to do anything other than look pretty.
Well, we'll talk
Yeah,
about
it'll be
that.
good for Apocalypse, if nothing else. I mean, that's kind of the place where I see most of these psychotically expensive things anyway.
Let's,
that's fair.
Excuse me.
let's go ahead and talk about Legion's Hereticus and see if that's enough of a force multiplier to make up for the force multiplier that he doesn't appear to be on his face. Legion's Hereticus, you basically swap your whole army for it. So you are no longer Legion's Astartes, Emperor's Children. You're now Legion Hereticus, Emperor's Children. Your special units can convert that over. I don't immediately, without like going through this with a super fine tooth comb, actually here, we might as well. Any unit with this special rule will have a number of additional special rules and abilities to their specific to their named legion. Those gained by the Emperor's Children are detailed as follow. Others will be detailed in other Age of Darkness publications. You may only have one such rule, so you cannot somehow both be Astartes and Hereticus of the same legion. Space Marines from a different legion can only show up as an allied detachment. You still follow all the same rules for the allied detachment. You become traitor if you weren't traitor. Unless specified otherwise, a unit with this special rule loses any benefits, option, or war gear available to their specific Legion's Astartes, but becomes Legion's Hereticus. So you will lose whatever war gear that Legion's Astartes, Emperor's Children, gives you, which I think is going to be the spear, the rapier, and their set of surgical augments. Units with pre-selected Legions Astartes, such as Palatine Blades, retain the same Legion variant of Legion's Hereticus, no surprise. It's interesting to note that, to my knowledge, because Alpha Legion says pick a Legion's Astartes, you would not be able to steal a Hereticus unit as Alpha Legion. Important to know. The advanced reaction, Twisted Desire. This reaction may be made once per battle during the opposing shooting phase, and is shooting models who are not falling back. The reacting unit becomes stupefied and adds 2 to its stupefied rolls as part of a shooting attack. Well, what's stupefied? Stupefied is...
Just keep going, that's amazingly funny.
Yep. Stupefied is the Hereticus special rule. A unit that is stupefied can only fire snapshots and cannot make reactions in any phase. After a shooting attack has been resolved against a unit, if the unit is not falling back, it can become stupefied. If it is stupefied while pinned, blind, or concussed, it is no longer pinned, blind, or concussed. So stupefied, unless we see otherwise, you still get to score, which if you saw that you failed your pinning roll, you could just be like, you know what, instead of being pinned, I think I'm just going to be stupefied, and you could still score that point at the end of the game, but we'll see if that still holds up. A unit that is stupefied can only fire snapshots and cannot react. If a unit that is stupefied has a charge declared for it, that charge is considered disordered. Ugh. Furthermore, while stupefied, all models in that unit increase their strength by 1, and when a model in the stupefied unit takes an unsaved wound, it takes stupefied as a damage mitigation roll. On a 6+, you ignore it. Add 1 to stupefy if a unit is already fearless, and you can only make 1 damage mitigation at a time. So, if for whatever reason you saw that you were going to get shot multiple times, your opponent had better hope that they lead with their strongest shot. But even if they lead with their strongest shot, you can still react normally against that shot and then drop to becoming stupefied after the fact. And, you know, that's an option that's here. Disordered Charge, I think, is a pretty high price to pay for gaining a 6-up Feel No Pain that can't be night fighted or instant deathed away. And it's also important to know that stupefied replaces or supplants the Emperor's Children rule that gave you, what was it, +1 to initiative on the charge?
Yep.
At the end of the controlling player's following turn, the unit is no longer stupefied. So once your turn ends, your units are no longer stupefied. While stupefied, a unit cannot make further morale checks in the movement or shooting phases and cannot be pinned. If the unit is forced to move, for example, if it has to fall back, it is no longer stupefied. So if they tank shock you, you will snap out of it and stop being stupefied because a tank shock will force you to fall back. If assaulted, the unit fights as usual, but enemies do not receive the initiative penalty for having charged through terrain if they don't have grenades. Cool. Units locked in combat can be stupefied, but take morale checks in the assault phase as normal, and if forced to fall back, will lose stupefied immediately. So you can actually, if the other guy is dumb enough to shoot you, you can become stupefied, and then rock that damage mitigation roll into close combat.
Yep.
What else do we have here? Divine Instruments. That's their unique war gear. Phoenician's Hubris. Models with this special rule may never select the Phoenix Warden console upgrade, and Phoenix Terminator squads with this special rule replace Living Icons and Phoenix Retinue with Fallen from Grace. Fallen from Grace, a unit with this special rule gains +1 to calculate the winner of combat during the assault phase if it is within 6 inches of another Hereticus Emperor's Children unit. If it's within 6 inches of Fulgrim, it instead gains +2 to this. Not great, but whatever. Exemplars of War. You can select either the Broken Mirror or Paragon of Excellence, but that's all. No surprise. We've got access to Corrupted Rites of War. You must be Legion's Hereticus, so you do have to have Fulgrim currently in order to get these Rites of War. I hope that changes in time for the publication, or for a more firm Hereticus publication, on the basis that there's a lot of people who would like to be able to play a late Heresy Emperor's Children army like this. There's also a lot of events that say Primarchs are disallowed, and so intrinsically linking Hereticus to Demon Primarchs is kind of a non-bow for me there.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be that hard to, if you are a TO, to say, hey, ignore the requirement of Fulgrim to run this.
Absolutely, especially for those TOs who prefer to play no Primarchs. Absolutely.
Yep. Because there's nothing in Fulgrim that seems to fix things that are required with the list.
Yeah.
It seems like there's an opportunity there where they could have given us a console that allows you to use Hereticus in and of itself without it being a Primarch, right?
Well, especially because
or kind of like the World Eater, you could have put Berserker on there or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And meant that he could be the only way to lead them. And other than Fulgrim was to have a guy with that.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that you lose access to the Phoenix Warden console. So that's notable. Anyway,
you know what else you lose access to? Tech Marines and Apothecaries.
Really? How so?
They can only join squads with Legion or Astartes.
I believe I'd have to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. I think the rules here tell you to supplant Legions Astartes with Legions Hereticus where appropriate. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding.
That would actually make sense and be a lot less broken.
Yeah. The Corrupted Rite Brotherhood of the Phoenix. A detachment using this Corrupted Rite may take up to 5 HQ choices, regardless of the Force Org in use. So even if you're playing Zone Mortalis, which I don't suggest doing this there, but whatever, your mileage may vary, each of these HQ choices must be from the following list: Eidolon, Lucius, or Champions. So no Primus Medicae, no Master of Signal, no Master of the Forge, no Praevian, no nothing. You get Champions, Eidolon, and or Lucius in your HQ slot, but you get up to 5 of them. Champions in this detachment, so not Lucius and not Eidolon, just Champions, gain Sycophantic Retinue. While Fulgrim Transfigured is on the battlefield, models with this special rule gain preferred enemy everything. But you do have to take Fulgrim for it, and it's listed as an explicit limitation. Needless to say, paying what I consider to be a relatively small character tax in order to buy preferred enemy everything for a squad is potentially game-breaking. If anybody played against Alfarius last edition, I know I played a lot of Alfarius when we stepped up to 3,000 points events, because I had a 2,500 point list I was very happy with, and it was super easy to drop Alfarius in for the last 500 points. Alfarius was nuts, to the point where they dropped his preferred enemy everything down to a 1 game turn trick this edition. And now they've given it to Emperor's Children champions. That's incredibly strong. Obviously, it's a little more challenging this edition to get units that are overwhelmingly capable in both shooting and close combat. But it's not like Terminator command squads are bad. You would have to obviously take a Praetor to kick one of those off, but even just attaching a champion to Fulgrim's squad means that Fulgrim is now potentially hitting on 2-up in close combat with a reroll, and wounding on 2-up in close combat with a reroll. If you've ever wanted to see the blender go brrr, that will do it. Next up, we've got the Corrupted Rite Children of the Maraviglia. All models in a unit from an allied detachment gain Stubborn while within 6 inches of Hereticus Emperor's Children. Fulgrim Transfigured gains The Stage is Set. We'll talk about that in a second. Fulgrim Transfigured must be included. What a surprise. May only be selected for a primary. Weird that we have to stipulate both Fulgrim Transfigured and primary only, but who's counting? An army whose primary detachment is using this rite of war must use an allied detachment that is selected from Solar Auxilia or Imperialis Militia. The stage is set. Before the start of the first turn, when placing units into reserves, if Fulgrim Transfigured has not joined a unit and does not have a retinue squad, the controlling player may place Fulgrim into reserves and must declare to their opponent a turn between 2 and 4, indicating on which of their own turns they will bring Fulgrim into play from reserves. At the start of the declared turn, the controlling player places Fulgrim wholly within 6 inches of a Hereticus Emperor's Children unit, and not within an inch of enemy models. If this is not possible, he can't be set up this turn, and you must attempt to do so next turn. Until Fulgrim is placed on the battlefield, all models in his detachment gain Stubborn. So if you really, really need to deep strike Fulgrim to get him into the right close combat that he needs to, this is a way to do it. There's no chance of mishapping here. He's allowed to behave, to my understanding, completely normally after he appears, but you do have to warn your opponent, hey, turn 2, Snake Boy's going to show up anywhere that can be within 6 inches of a Hereticus unit. And what's more, he doesn't have to attach to that unit. He can just do whatever he wants. So, kind of a disparate power level here that might be difficult to adequately nail down or predict. But again, if you want to get your big blender into close combat and you don't have another way to do so, this will do so. From there, we do have the Armory of Indulgence. The Armory of Indulgence still has the Phoenix Rapier and the Phoenix Spear. They are unchanged. Why they have you give up your war gear and then put it right back, I don't fully understand, but I didn't write the book. We do have debased
Probably
augments.
future-proofing or something for other reasons.
Yeah. We do have debased augments. These can be taken for characters, but not unique characters, and they cost 15 points. If a unit could buy surgical augments for every model, it instead takes debased augments for every model. A model with a Warp Scream gains Hammer of Wrath 1. If it already had Hammer of Wrath, it adds +1. And your Hammer of Wraths gain Rending 5. So remember where we were talking Palatine Blades with jump packs? Now they're Hammer of Wrath 2, now they're Hammer of Wrath 2, Rending 5. You could potentially make that Hammer of Wrath 2, Rending 5 preferred enemy everything. And now those units are really, really able to chop some things up before they even start making weapon attacks. Warp Scream is pretty okay if you thought you wanted to play Palatine Blades. The Abhorrent Sensoria model with this unit gains Precision Shot 5 and Precision Strike 5. If the other guy tends to bring a lot of Apothecaries, Tech Marines, and you want those to go away, Abhorrent Sensoria will get you there. I generally don't know what character you're going to take this on, just because if you wanted to take it on a character, you could have already probably bought them a Nemesis rifle, and that's always a precision shot. Sure, you won't get the Precision Strike 5, but you gotta get what you can get. Finally, we've got Sublingual Glands. It is an AP5 Flamer template with Fleshbane and Blind. That's fine. It's not amazing, but making the other guy test blind is pretty okay. Anything else stand out to anyone else before we go on to the other notable piece of content from the book, which is the new Salamander unit, because we decided that adherents were just a little too vanilla to leave as is.
It seems flavorful, but I feel that it's kind of lacking in that it didn't give us, other than Fulgrim, another corrupted unit to go with him, which I really felt the Emperor's Children could have used. Something to kind of show off how decadent they became, how abhorrent they became in their excess. I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, the stupidity is kind of odd, and the fact that the shot player has to make some kind of decisions on there, you would think it would be like you'd be overpowered and then couldn't make decisions or something like that. But the fact that you get to choose back and forth between what debilitating, whether you want pinned or stupefied or whatever, back and forth seems odd to me.
Even though it costs you, dare I say, the appropriate Fearless on Fulgrim, I think Stupefy is one of the stronger abilities in the game right now. Short of...
Yeah, it's just odd.
Yes, it's definitely odd mechanically that you're giving additional player agency to that person. But the fact that it still lets you score, and the fact that you can just decide to be as good at shooting as you were gonna be before the other guy shot you and pinned you, or I should say, you stay the same at shooting, whether you are pinned or stupefied. Stupefied lets you score. Stupefied gives you a damage mitigation save. That's all pretty capable when you stack it into the face of what pinning would have been to you. I don't know if it's quite as good as Wordbearer's corrupted units, but it's real close.
I will say it definitely feels more unique than just another corrupted unit, but I still wish there had been a corrupted unit or two for them. I also like the fact that it sits there and talks about the Astartes, Hereticus Astartes, or Legions Hereticus, whatever. Because that makes me sit there and go, yeah, hopefully we will see more like these down the road. And maybe we'll see other options like Legion's Exemplar or something like that to reflect true awesome loyalists somehow. I don't know. just spitballing here.
Yeah, opens up some opportunities. We'll go ahead and go with the Sanctifier squad from here. 125 points on their face, 5 models, 22 points a model for extra models. So a full squad of 10 will end up running you 235 points. That's pretty modest. They have a bolter, bolt pistol, chainsword. So these guys come with chainswords native, and I don't think vets do that anymore. And I don't think these guys are significantly more expensive than vets. I'll let somebody check my math on that. But chainsword's cool to see. Frag and crack grenades, power armor. They are vets. They're weapons 5. They're 2 wounds, 2 attacks on the basic guys, 3 attacks on the sergeant, lead 8 basic, lead 9 sergeant, 3 up armor. Awesome. They're also relentless, and they gain stubborn. Stubborn's a really nice pickup here. They can take a Proteus as a dedicated transport. That's fine. One can take a Vexilla, Nuncio Vox, Augury Scanner, 10 points each. The entire unit can take 25 points worth of Melta-Bombs. It's very Salamander, but I don't know why you'd bother. Anybody can replace their bolt gun with a second bolt pistol, because no sir, we respect the Geneva Conventions, and we have disbanded our destroyers. You can therefore also replace your bolter and pistol with either 2 Volkite Serpentas at 10 points or 2 Hand Flamers at 5. I wonder if those Hand Flamers would be capable of being upgraded to Dragon's Breath. Gut says yes, because Flamer, but just something to consider. For every 5 models in the unit, one may exchange their bolter for an Obsidiate rotor cannon, 10 points, we'll talk about that. For every 5, one can take a chain axe, power weapon, or thunderhammer. So despite being the legion of forge masters, artisans, and crafters, 1 in every 5 gets a thunderhammer. The sergeant can do the same, can take a chain axe, power weapon, power fist, or thunderhammer, 5, 10, 20, or 25 points. Again, sneak in a couple weapons, 5 thunderhammers, totally an option. Actually, I don't think vets can take thunderhammers outside of the sergeant, so never mind, we're okay here. You just can't take a whole bunch of other power weapons, but you can take 2 hammers, which I don't think normal vets can. Sergeant can take Artificer Armor at 10 points. And the notable thing is the rotor cannon. Strength 3, AP 5, 24-inch range. Assault 3, breaching 6 with pinning. Apparently, since our destroyers forsook the missile launcher and the grenade launcher, no surprise on both of those, because those come with rad rounds, and we don't do that in this house, no sir. The Obsidiate rotor cannon is fine. Forcing the other guy to take a pinning check, because you can't take Nemesis bolters on these, because they're destroyers and not vets, even though they have a vet stat line. It makes the other guy roll dice. It's fine. Outside of me just saying it's fine a lot, does anybody else have any significant take on this unit?
Well, I'll go ahead and stop my 2 cents off. I'm always looking for things that can do well in hand-to-hand combat. I love hand-to-hand. I think the combat phase is my favorite phase. These guys are definitely capable. Price-wise, having a vet squad that has 2 buried Thunderhammers, in essence, is really nice. Having the rotor cannon instead of a flamer kind of confuses me, honestly. But flavor-wise, I like these guys. They definitely seem like an option if you want to have a close combat flavor squad for your salamanders. They have my mark of approval.
Yeah, every Salamander player I reached out to, including sometimes guest on the show Michael, super happy about this unit.
I think very understandably, you have a unique, not quite vet, not quite destroyer, that doesn't fall into the pyroclasts role of we've got guns, yes we do, nor does it fall into exclusively the fire drake of we have thunderhammers. the fact that you can do both-ish in this unit, kind of cool. No standalone Meltagun access like you would get on Vets. Bit disappointing, but it's okay. If you took Dragon's Breath Flamers on these guys in Zone Mortalis, I know that's going to make your unit very expensive very quickly. So we started at 235. If we bought Artificer on the Sergeant, we're up to 245. If we bought 75 points of Thunder Hammers for Sarge and 2 Schmucks, that's now 320, if I'm right. You could then drop another 8 models with dual flamers, 40 points, 2 of the rotor cannons, 60 points total. So it'd be 380 points, which is pretty expensive for models without an invulnerable save. But in Zone Mortalis, you will make a horrific mess. Those Dragon's Breath Flamers being Strength 4 and AP 4. If the other guy is not a Starties, he's not really going to have a choice other than to get off the table. And even if the other guy is a Starties, you've got 2 Thunderhammers to wade in there and go make a mess. I wouldn't charge other Terminators with these guys. But even something like a Dreadnought, because you're stubborn, you're not going to have the worst time just trying to bonk through that guy as he punches maybe one of your dudes a turn.
Speaking as someone who plays close combat with guys who don't have invulnerable saves, meaning my Reavers, these guys are priced similar to the Reavers. And realistically, putting those 3 Thunderhammers in there and everything else, that even if I equip them close to what I do with my Reavers, ignoring the chain axe part, they're price-wise on par, which kind of makes sense. They don't have some of the same special rules, but they have some others that actually make them a little bit better. I like the stubborn on them. That definitely fits. Overall, this squad, I'm a pretty big fan.
Unless anybody has any other notes, we've got one last unit to review, and that was sort of the surprise inclusion. And that's the Arcology Incursion Brutes. 135 points for a demonic troop choice with line. Move 8, weapons 4, ballistics 3, strength tough 5, 3 wounds, I5, 3 attacks, lead 8, 4 up save. They have a 5-up invulnerable save. They have Hammer of Wrath 1. Their manifested weapons are AP 3, and you can buy up to 3 extra at 40 points a model. Yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. There's some rules explaining manifest weapons AP, but there's not a whole lot more to talk about other than, here you go. Here's demons that you can include in some of the missions that we list in here. It's a little bit of a shame that we didn't build these out into something more robust that word bearers could summon as part of their Demons of the Ruin Storm or the new standalone demon list, but maybe it's possible that these incursion brutes are just a little too strong to let into non-narrative play. All that having been said, do we have any more notes, or are we ready to wrap this episode up?
I don't really have anything else. Most of the exemplary battles units are the same in the book. There's a slight difference. The Atramatar can get lightning claws now. That was one I saw, but everything else pretty much is identical. I do like that they've made this available. I hope it's limited time.
Yeah, there's something that feels more official, like having a book. PDFs are fine, but I always like to have the physical copy because it just seems more official, even though it's just a silly thing.
No, that's actually kind of something I really agree with. Yeah, the PDFs are good. They're official, but there's something more official about having a book in your hands. So, yeah, yep. I get you there, Jim.
Yeah, I'll double down on that point and say that here's hoping that we can flesh out the Legion's Hereticus, and with these rules in the wild, hopefully that gives the opportunity for there to be some feedback on the Emperor's Children, and maybe maybe see them get a little tidied up before we get an en masse Legion's Hereticus release. While I have concerns that could leave some Emperor's Children's players in the lurch in the same way that Dark Angels generally experienced with their Rites of War, where they had to, and then those went entirely away, and they got 6 brand new ones. But I probably don't have the right amount of skin in the game to say whether one of those or the other would be particularly better or worse. So. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you, listeners, for joining us for this, the 60th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. I've been Jacob, and on this episode, I was joined by
Dan,
Duncan,
Jack.
And John.
And thank you for joining us. Remember, stay accountable to your hobby and to your buddies, and we'll see you guys next time.